everyone, this is Charlotte from Colorful Teaching for You. We are going to get started in a few moments and I really hope you can see me. I'm just so excited that you're here. So today we're going to be talking about perfectionism. So I hope, can you hear me or see me? If you can, please just let me know. Before I forget, check out the link that's associated with this video in case you want to help your children move from procrastination to productivity. So let's get started. You might be wondering, what are we here? What are we talking about? We're talking about perfectionism. And perfectionism is a branch of procrastination. Now, you might be thinking, well, why bother with perfectionism? A lot of children struggle with it because you might be giving them an assignment and it might be, let's say, number of objectives. But when they get that objective, they might be looking at it and thinking, oh my gosh, well, I'm going to get started right away, which is great. We want them to get started right away. But when they look at it, they look at the assignment and they say, okay, let's start. So they start working on it and then they go back to that first part and they realize they're not happy with it, right? Have you ever had students who are just not happy with their work? So they go back and they review it and they review it and they review it till the very last minute, and then your deadline comes and you wonder, well, what are they going to do? And so they rush to hand it in, they don't hand it in, or they come and they ask you for a deadline, not a deadline, but a extension. And that's tough, right? Because you don't know what to do. You try, but it's a little tricky. Now, we want to be able to help them move past that. There are some kids that are just so stuck on it, and they look at their work and they think, I don't know how to keep going. And I can tell you that if I was cut off at the beginning, if you're joining me right now, my name is Charlotte. I'm from Colorful Teaching for You, and honestly, I was a perfectionist and still am sometimes, and I can tell you that it sucks the life out of you sometimes, right? I used to wake up extra early in the morning, and I am not a morning person, just to make sure that everything was done perfectly. And I can tell you that everything looked beautiful, spectacular. I'm not saying this to boast about myself. What I am saying, though, is the amount of time and effort I put into being perfect, it sucked the life out of me to a point where I just didn't get any joy out of life. I didn't have the time to do anything fun. So a good thing to do would be to even ask your children how they feel about trying to be perfect, trying to do everything perfectly. Do they get time to enjoy their life? What do they enjoy? And do they have time for it? That's what we want to find out. You are going here, and because you're here, you're going to be the ones to give your children permission to just relax. And you're going to teach them to let it go, let it go. My sister loves Frozen, and we've been dealing with that a lot lately. But that's really what you're going to be teaching them, to just let it go and to just be okay with what they're doing. And so let's actually get started. If you have a pen and a paper, I would highly recommend taking some notes because we're going to get right into actionable steps. Okay? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to pick a date. And we're going to work on this for like at least 5 or 6 days. So they're not going to be big lessons. They're going to be quick, short, mini lessons. So what you're going to do is pick one day to start, and I know because you're a teacher, lots of things are happening, so you're going to be flexible, right, with that date. But it's good to have a date on paper. So pick a date and then state beside it somewhere on that page that you are going to give your kids permission to not be perfect. You're going to tell them that you're not looking for perfectionism when you grade their assignment. What you are looking for is effort. Effort and understanding. If they understand the assignment, then everything fits. If they get something out of the assignment, then they can progress further. It's not about grammatical corrections for everything. Yes, there's a time for grammar, but If you're, say, teaching science, maybe it's the time for understanding how to, let's say if it's chemistry, mix the ingredients together, right? So that's what we're going to be looking at. So give them permission to just be, and to just be, to put in the effort. That's it. The next thing is we're going to now go through our teaching phase. 5 days of teaching, or 6. On day 1, you're going to pick a book or a segment to read. So what I mean by this is, if you're teaching elementary children or intermediate, well, primary or intermediate children, you might pick a book. If you're teaching maybe high school, you might pick a section of a book. This does not have to be something that's out of the blue. Pick something that's related to your curriculum. So let's say we are teaching science. I might pick up my science textbook and I might pick a segment that I want to read to them. And so when you read to them, have them take notes. That's it. They're just taking notes. No one's seeing these notes. So they take their notes in their folder, they close it, it's done. Right? So but they're not taking notes after the fact. They're taking those notes while you're reading to them. Because you don't want them to have time to go back and just focus on those notes. Just what you're reading. That's it. After that, the next day, we're going to reinforce the learning in a different way. You're going to review those notes again with them. And so as a whole class, you might brainstorm ideas about what we talked about in your lesson, and then after that, you're going to let them draw it out. Now, this might seem a little bit weird for high school kids, but it's not. And the reason for it is, when you have children drawing, you're catering to different learning styles, right? And so this way, those kids who they got the auditory, they got the visual, you've got the kinesthetic and the tactile way of learning, right? Now you want to be able to also get another method. So have them draw it out. After that, day 3, you're going to take this same thing. You're going to now have them summarize what they read. Now here's the kicker with the summarizing. You need to have a timer with you, because you're going to time them for maybe 5 to 10 minutes max. They're going to write their summary, and they are not allowed to proofread it. And if they do have this dire need to proofread it, they cannot at all use their eraser, and they cannot use whiteout. In fact, I would recommend, if they're the older grades, use a pen, because that way there's no way they're going to be able to erase it without that whiteout, and you'll be able to see it really well. So they can only cancel out certain things. That's it. Okay? And this is so that you can actually see, you know, what they were thinking about. You can see the thought process really well that way. Now the following day, which is day 4, they get time here to proofread. But again, the kicker is they cannot white out, and they cannot erase anything at all. And on day 5, they can go over their work all over again. But this time, any drawings that they have, they get to color that in, make it look lovely. But they only get a certain amount of time to do all of these assignments. So they don't get like a full class. They don't get time to do this at home. They maybe only get 10 minutes in that day. Because again, you're looking for effort, not perfection. Now, at the end of this, I would recommend asking them, how did you feel about handing in an assignment that didn't require you to be perfect, that didn't require you to go over it and over it and over it? And some of them will say, that was so awesome. And then there's going to be others that go, meh. And then you'll have others who will say, I hated it. I would have been one of those that hated it, right? Because I would have wanted to give you the best work I possibly could. And so you want to say, okay, those who hated it, why? I'm not looking at it for perfection. In fact, I looked at how much you understood it, and get this, you did a spectacular job. So praise the effort. That's super important for them. And one key thing that I want to remind you about, when you're doing this, don't do it just once. Do this lesson do these lessons a number of times. Because if we want to change a habit, we can't do it once. We've got to do it over and over and over again. Because over time, your children are going to look at you and think, wow, I can just let go. They're going to be able to let go, because they'll think, it's okay. It's okay. Now I have time to do some other things. And they won't get it right away. It might take a little bit. They may not even understand that they're doing it, but they will in time be able to let go, and you'll see that progress. You'll see them being able to just do their work. Now, if you are at home or a homeschooling parent and you're trying to figure out how do I help my child who's at home and who doesn't have the ability to do this in class because maybe their teacher's not doing it, don't worry about that. You can use the same concept. Use a timer. Say, okay, you have this time to this time to work on this assignment. That's it. Or this part of the assignment. If you're not done, too bad. I'm going to take a look at it. And then you look at it. Okay, you've put in the effort. This makes sense. Okay, you might need to tweak this a little bit, but this is good enough. Move on to the next section. Time it. Move on to the next section. When they're done everything, then you can say, okay, here's the deadline, maybe 5 days from now, you have time to proofread this part. But again, with the proofreading, because they'll probably want to keep on proofreading the same section, start with time the proofreading to each section as well. Okay? It's a lot of work up front, but if you were to do this maybe 4 times, 5 times, you know your students, it might be less, then you know that in time they're going to be able to do it by themselves. There'll be an internal thing that ticks off for them. So don't worry about that. Take your time. And if you have questions, send me a message. I'd be so happy to get back to you, and we can work on this together. Now, if your children are not necessarily working through perfectionism and just procrastination in general, like I said, there's a video with this with the link. Just check that out. And in the meantime, know that I'm just so happy that you've joined me here. Remember to have this match your curriculum. Don't go overboard with creating too many plans, because that can be overwhelming for you as a teacher or a homeschooling parent. You've got enough on your plate. I totally understand that. So thank you so much for joining me. If you have any comments, leave it for me, and I will get back to you soon. In the meantime, remember to create, experience, and teach from the heart. Thank you so much for joining me, and take care.